All right, let's talk Dallas Cowboys. This is a team, and anyone who's followed this team this offseason has recognized they've done a lot of really solid football moves across the board. But despite that, those in the media have really predicted the Cowboys have an underwhelming season. Well, we've got some data for you guys that I think points to the Cowboys being a lot better than people think. I think they're more dangerous than people think. We'll get to all of that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, this is the time of year where people throw in different predictions about how different teams are going to go, right? We're in the heat of June and July, a little bit of a lull in terms of football news and things like that. And a lot of people are predicting Dallas to have a somewhat disappointing season. They're not predicting them as a playoff team. But when you look at where the Cowboys are, it's very clear that they have talent. But the biggest question, as it is with every team, is the quarterback position. How good can you be at the quarterback position? We all know this in the National Football League today. If you're good at quarterback, you will win. If you're not good, you will lose. And if you look at what happened with Dallas really over the past two seasons, but certainly last year, we know the injuries at Dak Prescott. But when we talk about quarterback performance, the data points to a very interesting tell. So let's pull up a chart here. And it's going to look kind of interesting. I'll kind of walk through what this data in front of us shows here. So this is a bell curve with dots, just a graph of the normal distribution of Dak Prescott's seasons in the National Football League. You've got the arrows on the far right pointing to his performance, his PFF grades at the bottom. That's the x-axis in 2023, where he had his MVP season. In 2024 on the far left. And you can see those were two extreme outliers over Prescott's career. So when people talk about regression towards the mean, normally what happens if you have a season like Prescott did in 2023, you regress to the middle a little bit, right? Instead of having like a 90 grade, you regress to around 80, 75-ish. That's where it's centered around in terms of Dak Prescott's mean. It's actually about 78 based on the data. But he didn't regress towards the mean. He regressed to completely the other extreme. So this isn't statistically impossible. It makes some logical sense in terms of if you look at probabilities. It's still just very rare to have a top 10% season on one end of the curve and then completely flip and have a bottom 10% season on the other end of the curve. It's rare to have that happen back to back. Statistically speaking, he should have moved to the middle of the season last year in 2024. Certainly after last year, he is extremely likely to move to the middle of this distribution this season. What does all this mean? What does all these numbers, what does this dot plot mean? What does everything I'm showing to you mean? It shows that the Cowboys should, based on just raw data, raw analytics, raw probability, be 10 to 15 points better at minimum, better at the quarterback position. And that pushes the Cowboys in a territory where they're a playoff team. You bump up your passing grade. If you bump up your quarterback grade, instead of being about 65 the way it was with Prescott, it was worse with Cooper Rush and, of course, Trey Lance at the end of the season. But if you bump that up to about 80, which is his average, which would again be moving back towards the mean, moving back to the middle of the distribution here, the Cowboys would be among a group of teams, if you look at the past 3 years, who have quarterbacks that have graded in that section. There's been about 16 quarterbacks total who have graded around that area. 15 of them have made the playoffs. Now, does that guarantee a Cowboys playoff performance? Does it guarantee Dak Prescott's going to move to the middle there? No, right? This is just odds and probability and just raw data and stats. What it does show is that there's a high likelihood, extremely high probability that the Dallas Cowboys are going to be a lot better than people think. Right now, Dallas is falling victim to the recency bias. People saw what Dak Prescott looked last season. They said he'll maybe be a little bit better in 2025. The reality is he is most statistically to be significantly better in 2025 because 2024 was such an outlier to the negative. When you look at this data, if you want one big takeaway from everything I've thrown in front of you here, is that the Cowboys are going to be a lot better than people think because their quarterback play is going to be a lot better in 2025 than it was in 2024. All right, Miles, I know you've got a few thoughts on this, but first, Cowboys fans, in the comment section below, I've got a question for you guys, and this is a dandy, no pun intended. Who is your favorite Cowboys quarterback in NFL history? Is it Dandy Don? If you've been around that long enough, if you've seen him, I mean, maybe you're a Craig Morton guy, you're Staubach, maybe you love Danny White. Obviously, Aikman's there, and look, there's a lot of hardcore Romo fans, and maybe a Dak guy, right? There's been so many great quarterbacks for the Dallas Cowboys over the decades. It's why it's the most glamorous, famous position in all of sports. Give us your favorite Cowboys quarterback. I want to hear from you guys in the comment section below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys, this data, quarterback position, just everything going on with this team right now?
Yeah, and I think when you look at everything, like you said, I think there's been two polarizing seasons on this chart, and the chart does really. I think it does. Some people might find it complicated, but I think when I look at it, it kind of shows like a really good the arc of it all shows just how it should be. We've had a lot of years of Dak. We know who he is. We know who he isn't, and we see where he kind of falls. You look at his grades. He's probably like that mid to low 80 PFF grade. That's the guy that he is. That's the guy he's shown to be. And I think when you have one extreme in the 2023 and one extreme as far as what you get in 2024, it does skew things and it makes people think, well, in their back to back, in my opinion, that makes it worse. Because then you have the 2023, you have such the statistical anomaly year there where he did so fantastic. And people are like, oh, wow, this is great. And then you have his lowest statistical year the year after that. People are like, wow, this guy's washed. He kind of sucked. It's like, no, he was just way better than average one year and way worse than average the other year. I think, like you said, when he regresses to the mean or gets back to the mean in this case, because being the worst season this past season, this is going to be a team that excels. And I think kind of this is what the whole team has been built on this year is not you just being solid all around. There wasn't a lot of flash, or a lot of glitz and glamour outside of the George Pickens pickup, which I think was a really great move, but that's the flashiest thing this team did this offseason. They did a lot of smart stuff, a lot of good football stuff. I think we've said this probably about 100 times over the last 10 or 15 videos. Just smart football oriented coaching staff, football oriented player moves, just really good, solid football stuff. And this is a team that is good across the board. Not great, not fantastic. They don't have the best offensive line in all of football. They don't have the best tackle in football like they did when they had Tyron Smith or Zach Martin or somebody like that. But they're really good. They're solid. They're right there in the mix with everything. And I think when Dak comes more stable, this team is set up to make deep playoff runs. It's just there's not one star in one particular place. Obviously, got guys like Marcus Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. I'm just talking about the team as a whole. Overall landscape of the team is really, really solid. I think this is a team that isn't going to have too many weaknesses because of this philosophy, because of what's going on. And I think Dak is going to mold back into the guy that he was and show, hey, this is what he is. We all knew who he was. We can't let 2023 cloud our judgment. We can't let 2024 cloud our judgment. When he gets back to where he was the years before that, this team's going to be primed. It's going to be ready to go. Not going to be all on Dak's back now. It's not going to be all on CeeDee Lamb's back. Micah Parsons got a ton of help this offseason as well. I think overall, there's a lot of good happening for Dallas, and I think this team is set up for success because of this quote-unquote regression to the mean.